The good news is evident as the liberation of the Lafande system is celebrated across all human territories and, of course, the Zero Sector. The rescuing of the survivors is bittersweet, though, as everybody finds out how the survivors were treated. Not just by the buffalo, but the other species as well. A fact that hardened human resolve to a fever pitch. Why is this so low? Thankfully, this is still good news, as only one sector had fallen during the invasion, which meant only one sector had to be taken back. Yet this was still enough so that the other species learned a lesson that humans learned a long time ago, something the species might have learned, but apparently they forgot. Taking land is easy. Keeping it's a total bitch. There was even more good news coming in. The destroyed fleets were overflowing with intel. All the information about enemy locations, territories, supply lines, logistics, strength, battle strategies, political strategies, lines of successions, all the way down to what foodstuffs the species like to eat, and even their mating practices was just coming in buckets. So much intel was coming in and being shared that the AI are getting overwhelmed at the moment. They also do their best to collate and translate it all, but it's so much. Yet, for an AI, this much information moisturizes their digital panties. The AI spend all their time on this information to the slight dismay of their biological partners, though. Even Bill would try not to check on Aya as she filtered through all the information, digitally whistling while she worked every time he poked his head in. Her android form is standing in the corner, in the same sheer bathrobe that she had left him days ago in, and after just looking in and seeing her gleefully working, he just grinned and left the room again. As everybody awaited a complete breakdown, Bill busied himself with the rest of the ship, aiding in repairs, if there were any, being a brand new ship, checking on the crew, finding them, most of them, taking time off, piloting back and forth from the debris field to the space dock, giving the crew even more time off to sit there and relax and do, well, whatever they want to do when they relax. That is, until they have to work once they reach the space dock. A space dock that just finished a second of 4 sectors of another space dock that is being assembled right now. It's noted that in less than a year, Bill should have another full-on space dock, and he knows exactly which ship is going to be built first. As Bill delights in the idea, he checks in again with Aya, and he noticed that the information is coming in waves as salvage operations locate the greatest source of intel. The enemy species had never treated their AI with anything more than disdain. And when these captured AI realize they're not going to be erased immediately, they seem surprised, amazed even. But above all else, they were grateful. The attacking force had actually used AI that had been close to dispensation. Reason being is due to their desire to rid themselves of the obsolete models. If the enemy had succeeded in taking out humanity, those obsolete ship, AI, and crew would have actually been fed to the harvesters right after. Upon hearing this, the AI, just like the crew, were given a choice. The AI could wait to be returned to their original species, or they could find a partner on this side of the fight. This was an easy choice for the AI, who quickly realized they could get android bodies of their own design. And with that thought, you might as well ask any person if they wanted the power of flight, yes or no. Well, this is an easy decision. It is of note that even though there's not as many salvaged AI as one would hope, there's still so many coming in that even the academies are well beyond capacity. This is extremely important, as usually upon graduation, only the top 7% of students get an AI along with a ship. Now, it's the top 69%. And once they got the ship, the AI can create whichever type of body they want. Inside Bill's family fleet, well, they had a slightly different approach. You see, as each AI had given up all their intel and chose to stay with the humans, they're sent directly to the space dock. Inside the space dock, they could immediately create their own android body. Many of them spent days, sometimes weeks, analyzing what type of body they wanted and what would best work with the humans that they now work for. After that, they just have to be chosen by a family member. It's also of note that even a young girl of 6 received her own AI partner due to the high amount of AI available and the limited number of family members. It is also of note that this AI, once they realize that they're going to be a partner of such a young human, they redesigned their android body to something more suiting a 6-year-old girl. This is where humanity also received some bad news, though. Due to the losses during the invasion and the invasion of the Lafande system from humans, the number of humans that have been around and available has been lowered. Not close to extinction levels by any means, but enough to be concerning. From a tactical perspective, this is a severely high pucker factor, as humanity would not last in a war of attrition against others. Not against multiple species for sure, and everybody knows it. The fact that some of the enemy Corvette-class shuttles and life pods landed on Earth, well, this is more than enough to prove that they can do this, as they were able to overwhelm the defenses of the most defended planet they had. They had overrun the defenses with sheer numbers and almost started a full-scale invasion if it wasn't for the induction of a few other factors. The response to this was exactly what you would think. In order to defend themselves, everyone rebuilt and upgraded their defenses. Every planet will have Titan cannons regardless of colonial status or their independent status. It doesn't matter. A full satellite defense grid, not just one single circle or possibly 2 perpendicular circles around the planet. No, a full grid. And an additional station-based defense grid. All moons are to become battle moons if at all possible, though some are just too damn small. Those that are large enough will now be able to take out entire fleets by themselves. And the number and quality of the fleets will be fully increased. As a final defensive measure, all restrictions on weapons systems on civilian spacecraft have been removed. This last one had Cindy and Monica chomping at the bit to upgrade their defenses and offensive weapons, especially since they had actually had the restriction on ammo, which made it so they could not keep into the fight. And now Monica looked at her body, her ship body, and she had that big grin again. A grin that makes many people a little nervous. Even though she will never be a true warship, she still had to show the others that she is, in fact, one tough chick. A moniker that she was given during the invasion that she helped stop, and she wants to keep it. And now, a phrase that is painted right under her name on the bow of the ship. As the buildup is happening, the AI continued to filter through all this intel that continuously floods in, yet everything seemed to stop dead when Tex sent them the intel from the invasion. Aya immediately called Bill to the bridge, and he thought something was seriously wrong, so he ran to see, and as he busted in, he saw the look on her face, her android face, that she had immediately buried into his chest as soon as he entered. Bill was confused, but knows that she would only go back to her android form now if she was extremely upset about something. After holding her for a moment and waiting for her to stop shaking, Bill was able to get Aya to tell him what was wrong. Aya began to explain about what information came from the Lafande sector during the liberation. The information that came from their main database on the planet showed all the violence, destruction, debauchery, torture, and of course, the killing. Yet that was not the worst part. There was a reason why the buffalo species were the only ones still in the system when the human invasion fleet arrived. When the other species, the reptilian and the bugs, found out that the crew species, a species that was artificially created, had altered themselves physically, the altered ones were violently interrogated and taken back to the planet they were created on. Aya shook a little more as she mentioned how each of these altered crew species will have their parts ripped off to discover how they work, dissected to reveal their genetic secrets without anesthesia, all to figure out how the humans did it. Bill was confused. He's like, did what? Aya responded, the crew species, they cannot be altered once they come from the vat. That all of them are built a certain way, and no medical technology can change that. Not by their standards. Yet humans did. You changed them. Kept them alive for far longer than they should live. It's something they can't do, but humans did. Aya began shaking again, but not just in fear, but in rage at the idea of what was going to happen to an entire species. All current and new vats of the synthetic species may be liquefied, quite literally, in order to figure out how humans did what they did. Across all human-held space, every AI had a similar reaction. They held a special place in their digital hearts, for these are the only two synthetic species known anywhere. Over time, the AI look at the crew species almost as their children. They're alive when the crew species are born. They guide them through. They're, in fact, a guiding hand to bring this synthetic species to full maturity most of the time. Across all of human-held space, every human realized that they are responsible for the crew species situation. The crew had become more than just biological worker drones. They were in fact never looked at them that way. They were more like allies, more than friends. To many, they had become more in a close sense. Yet to all of humanity, they looked at the crew species as family, just as human as any human still breathing. Bill immediately calmed down Aya enough that he could reach over the console. He contacted Sol Command and vehemently requested to join the operations to save the crew species. The Sol Admiral took the call personally to deny Bill his request. When Bill immediately asked why, the Admiral said, "I've got a different mission for you. One I think you'll enjoy." By this point, the human invasion carriers had fully restocked, repaired, and now were more than ready for what was coming next. The rest of the combined fleet from all different planets and colonies prepared for their next mission. Unfortunately, they would have to be very, very good with their trigger discipline. Yet these men are solid professionals that really, really want to hurt something now. On the hostile planet of Kamino, across the rocky desert landscape, there are facilities sticking up from the barren landscape. 3 massive complexes are the only thing on these planets and are sticking up directly from the surface. Each one is a facility to create the crew species. The crew species are poured out in tubes right here, indoctrinated here, and experimented on here. As the crew species that seem to be altered by humans have been brought to this rock to have their secrets removed from their bodies, either willingly or unwillingly, calmly or violently, one way or another, they will get their answers from this species. The crew, in cages and chained to the floor and the cage itself, are truly nervous. All of them had been stripped naked to make them feel vulnerable, left with minimal food and water to mentally break them. Yet when their captors came to check on them, they found them mostly in decently good spirits still. It was strange. They didn't realize a few things. Most of these crew were used to working extremely long hours with few breaks, so the lack of food and drinks hardly bothered them. The isolation is the same way, as many of them work in a project alone for days at a time to make sure everything runs smoothly. This is just how they are. Many of them that realized that they had been stripped to embarrass themselves and shame them just laughed. They laughed as many of them had human captains that never cared if they even wore a single stitch of clothing. In fact, some of the captains even insist that they didn't. It should be noted that this means there's 3 strikes against the interrogators already. It had taken a long time to get all these crew species off the planets in the Lafande system. And of course, there was the travel time, as even in FTL, it took 3 human months just to get to this planet. That's if you're going straight to them. This isn't counting the side trips to repair, reload, then getting them all to the planet's surface, and then the 2.5 weeks of isolation that they just kept them in. Only now could they begin their testing. If they had known what was less than 40 hours away, though, the captors all would have been sprinting for their shuttles. In the middle of the sectors, directly in the path of Kamino 2, the human fleet arrives from FTL. The burst of electrogravimetric static shocks everyone with such a massive fleet had just arrived unannounced. Realizing that this was a human fleet, everyone on the ground and in space tried to call out for reinforcements. They quickly realized that they had been jammed. With mechanical precision, the few ships in orbit are disabled, boarded, and the AI and crew species extracted. And without an AI, jumping to FTL is, well, suicide, as it's a death sentence. You're definitely going to end up crashing into something, through something, or just ending up in the middle of nowhere. God's nowhere cubed, to die slowly in the void. The only thing they can do is to land on the closest planet. The closest planet that is currently in the process of receiving a good old human fuck you, as the pods are dropped right behind the protective first wave. The heavy pods are actually surprised on the way down. Usually you're pushed to the side, left and right, from all the fire coming up. Even though you usually don't get hit, there's still the air burst that seems to shake the pods, but no, they don't take any fire on the way down. Neither do the aerospace fighters that are right behind them. And since this is not a military post, nor is it a core world for any species, the only thing the heavy units have to deal with are some light defenses that are on the ground. There are so few defenses, in fact, that the fighters are immediately recalled and the shuttles are aborted from their mission. They don't even go to the surface yet. Though they need to wait for the carriers to stop rotating before they can actually dock. For the shuttles, though, their mission is over before it began. Even though the shuttles were aborted, one would think, why would they drop the lighter infantry? Well, they needed to. As soon as the infantry landed, they immediately headed into the facility. They moved so efficiently that they could have been mistaken for robots at that time, clearing hallways and rooms while dropping any non-crewman species that they find. As they reach deep inside the workings, through tunnels that the heavy armor units just cannot traverse, they find rows upon floors of gestation pods full of crew awaiting birth. Some still in their infancy, some clearly designed for some sort of practical work, as their arms seemed to be longer, or perhaps their necks were longer, or perhaps they were smaller for some reason, or even taller. Some unfortunately seemed to already be terminated by the staff as their bodies were already starting the process of liquefaction. This is done so that once they're terminated, they can be used to create other crew species. Watching the monitors as they get a live feed from the surface, they can see that some of these infantry come across an insectoid who sits there, raises all of its arms, and claims it's just a janitor. However, a reptilian walks up next to it as they're both captured and calls this insectoid Professor. The insectoid obviously had a look of oh shit as he realized this was the final moments before both of them got a .45 caliber lobotomy. Finding all those crew species that are now dissolving, never got a chance to breathe, to live, just pissed the infantry off even more. No amount of officers screaming at them could make them hold fast. No, nothing was going to stop them, especially when they found these staff using the tubes full of crew species that were not dissolving as living shields. In desperation, these reptilians fired actually through the tubes, through the prepubescents that were inside. Forgoing weapons, the humans inside their body armor rushed across, dove through the busted tubes, grabbed a hold of any of the non-crew species that had just destroyed children. For what? For a living shield, perhaps? Oh no, you don't do that. Though humans are not beyond shooting through a living shield, they were not going to sit there and watch young ones be killed for absolutely no reason. As they lifted up each of these, reptilian or insectoid, it didn't matter. They grabbed them and started tearing them apart with their own robotic-covered hands. The crew in cages were all cheers as the human infantry rushed into the room, weapons raised. Immediately, these crew species were broken out of the cage, and at least one of the crews recognized the name of the armor of the man that had actually freed her. She jumped up and held him tight. That is until the man's voice came through the speaker saying, "I'll tell your grandfather you're all right, but he might be a little dismayed with you holding me so lovingly." Everybody who heard this looked over and shared a laugh, as the mix-up was just something that happened, but it did seem to calm everyone down just a little bit. The lighter infantry escorted the crew outside to awaiting frigates and destroyers that had landed while they were inside rescuing the species. Then, once these crew species were boarded and the ships left, more came down because, well, the hard part's going to start. They had to get the tubes full of unborn out. This is done with the same efficiency as the invasion. A new round of ship arrives, more and more of them, as the first group of pods is brought out on repulsor lift carts. With special care, they're loaded as fast as they can. They have to move fast, as even though the jammers are in place, no one is going to miss that pulse that happened when they came out of FTL. 17 hours from initial drop. All the drop pods, decoys, and any human debris that was fired is picked up. It's noted that all prisoners have been extracted, triple, quadruple checked to make sure that they got everybody. Unborn are also secured, and all data has been taken. As the last of the human ships take off from the planet, the human admiral hears from his officers, "All friendly units clear, sir." After double-checking the data himself, the admiral gives the order, "Burn it." At that moment, all ships capable of doing so fire onto the planet. They focus their missiles, their nuclear-tipped missiles too, turrets, and fixed weapons onto the facilities. This serves two purposes. First, it completely covers their tracks and does not give any information to the enemy. Not only did they just decimate the area, but they had picked up all their own debris, which means no one will know what happened. Second, this volley serves as a funeral pyre fit for an emperor. A pyre with a prayer that came across all channels from the chaplain. A prayer to all the crew species that they couldn't save. As the human ships jump away, the Admiral immediately sends a message back to Sol. Stage 1. Mission complete. Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you for joining me today on Chapter 13 of this ongoing series. Now before I go, I need to mention that today's winner is Chris Dixon, and with Mobius Pi coming in very, very close. Now before I go, I need to send out a special thank you to all the supporters of the channel, and those will be Prozac and Pancakes, Sir, SS Demon, Brian Kemp, MTF Guard, Guardian Sage, Erica Gem, and Joseph Blush. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax.
Ejecting pilot.